For this bank holiday weekend is the three-leg Easter Superbike Championship. Don't confuse that with the Transatlantic Series, because this is an open class for bikes from 300 to 1300 cc's. The first leg was raced a little while ago, and it was a chance for some of the British reserves, perhaps, to suggest that they might have been included in the main event after all. A £1,000 prize to boot for the winner, Burnett and Marshall in there as well, and for this one, Barry Sheen joined Chris Carter.
On the grid, the competitors for this first leg of a three-part Superbike race then. The front row of the grid, Paul Lewis, the Australian on the Skull Bandit Suzuki, was fastest. Next to him, Roger Marshall, Roger Burnett, Trevor Nation, and John Swingler, a local boy, who in fact is the man who holds the 1300cc lap record after the first meeting here at the new Leg Donington circuit. Straining at the leash, all eyes on the traffic light start. This over 10 laps, and Swingler amongst the others keen to get away, and finally the lights do change, and off they go, and it looks as though it's Roger Burnett, number 9, on the right of the picture, and his teammate Roger Marshall, number 11, who are going to take the lead. And it is Burnett and Marshall first and second. You can see there people having all sorts of problems on the exit and the apex of the Redgate bend, coming down into Craner curves now on the first lap. The rain sleeting down across the Donington Park circuit, and Burnett is the race leader, Roger Marshall in second spot, and the roar of this mixed two-stroke and four-stroke class roars out.
I must be happy when the first lap's over, because they can get some heat into their tyres. It's so difficult to get the wet tyres to get any traction until you get some temperature into them. So once the first lap's over, then they're over the worst bit.
So Burnett leads, Roger Marshall in second spot, and Barry Sheen there quite rightly concerned about the effects of what will happen. Stephen Veazey is the man there in third spot. Steve Veazey, a man well known in the ranks of club and national riders, and he's charged through from well down. He was on the fourth row of the grid, into the S's.
Someone straight on.
And two people straight on. Well, they wanted to go on the old circuit, they decided the new one wasn't really, and no, somebody else goes down the slip road. Well, oh dear, 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 that was very naughty indeed, Barry.
Well, I think what it is, it's a new circuit to virtually everybody, and that just with the old circuit, you get a mental note where you should brake, and they're just sort of rearranging their mental notes at the moment.
And the change out in front, because Roger Marshall has gone ahead of Roger Burnett, so the Rothmans Honda Britain duo out in front. Stephen Veazey still there in third place on the big four-stroke. Veazey will be well pleased with this. A good ride from the Kawasaki rider, sponsored by Myers Motors. There he is in the picture. Well, the big four-stroke, nice torque job, would you say, for here, Barry?
Well, no, I was just... He beat me to it, actually. What I was going to say is the four-strokes don't give you the advantage that they used to, because they're very peaky power-wise. And you see, he's just getting the power on, and she breaks away, and that's just as it comes into the power band, you see. So, it's very difficult conditions, as I said.
Well, Stephen Veazey's moment of glory disappears in the most spectacular fashion at Redgate as down he goes. And that leaves Roger Marshall, this man 5 times the British champion, bike number 11. A very experienced man. He's got a handful though really with teammate Roger Burnett. Definitely no team orders with this pair. Burnett has beat Marshall, or he beat him at the end of last year. He beat him at the first meeting this year, and with £1,000 at stake to the overall winner. I'm sure Roger would like to do the same again. The front two men pull well clear.
I'm sure, well, Roger Burnett last year was the first year he was with Honda, and prior to that he'd ridden Suzuki's quite a long time, and the difference between the two bikes is quite extreme, because the Honda is a 3-cylinder bike, and the characteristics of the power are totally different. So this year I think you'll see Roger Burnett go in his true fashion, because he's used to the bikes, and it takes quite a lot of getting used to.
Well, of course, you've got a lot of faith in the lad. You gave him his big break, didn't you?
Well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he's my hot tip. He rides with a lot of sense. He doesn't ride with his heart, he rides with his head. So I think he'll go a long way.
And round Goddard Corner to complete the second lap. Roger Marshall, Roger Burnett in third place at the moment is number 119, John Swingler. That's the local boy. John Swingler, who set the fastest lap here at Donington when this new circuit was opened back last August. And you can see him being very wary, winding on the power. He saw Steve Veazey go down.
Well, he's doing the right thing because he's keeping it up as straight as he can and getting the power on when the bike's up straight. It's the only thing you can do, you know. It's, as I say, it's not very nice conditions at all. And you're riding on sort of a knife edge. You're just feeling the front end of the bike because obviously the front end's the worst end to lose.
Now, was Roger Burnett in trouble there? We saw him somewhat slow. There is the race leader, Roger Marshall, number 11. And Burnett, who was right with him early on, appeared to be slowing. And Paul Lewis, the man who was fastest in practice, is into the pits. Oh, there is Burnett, so really he's just perhaps had a bit of a moment somewhere. Barry.
Well, in these kind of conditions, Chris, it's so easy to have a moment. And when you do have one, what you have to do then is just sort of speed up and get back into your rhythm again. Because if you think, oh, well, that's not going to happen again, then just give it a big handful and you end up running for the Band-Aids.
There is Roger Burnett trying to pull back the ground he lost halfway round that lap.
You see, Roger Burnett is in a better position in a way because when you're following somebody, you can sort of gauge your speed and you just gauging your speed just to keep up with them. Whereas Roger Marshall's having the worst of the job because he's having to make the pace and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
And there is the race leader and the second place man, Marshall and Burnett. Number 11 Marshall, number 9 Roger Burnett. Roger Burnett, of course, one-time mechanic for Roger Burnett in the second spot. And the moment is 119. That's John Swingler, local boy from Nottingham, having a very good ride. And Steve Parrish through to fourth place.
It's quite funny with Steve because he used to hate the wet. And the beginning of last year, or rather the end of 1984, he got some good results in the rain. And riding in the rain is all about confidence. Obviously, if you throw the thing down the road 5 times in a row, then you're not going to feel too happy about riding in it. But Steve's got his act together now, hasn't he?
So, fourth place at the moment, number 6, Steve Parrish, just behind him, 149. Howard Selby, the talented Scotsman of the Suzuki, and Kenny Irons, one of the transatlantic challenge men, like Steve Parrish and Marshall and Burnett, sitting there nicely in 7th place behind Selby.
To see Kenny Irons, he's taking it really well, not cautiously, but he's
less than 1.5 laps underneath the back straight, underneath the Dunlop Bridge. There you see the gap between the first and second men.
The nice thing for Roger Marshall in having Roger Burnett behind him, he knows Roger Burnett really well, and he knows that Roger Burnett is not going to do a banzai effort and come howling up the inside of the hairpin with both wheels locked and his eyes shut. So that's a definite consideration when you're in conditions like this. You think, oh dear, you come up to the hairpin, you're gritting your teeth, just a glimpse over the shoulder, you think, oh.
Yes, we've seen that happen more than once here.
Yeah, yeah, really.
So, Burnett and Marshall the leader, coming round to complete his 9th lap. The 10th and final circuit then, and again to the naked eye that gap appears to be shorter, but that's the television lens, I think, foreshortening the gap, or maybe it's not. No, it's not. Half a second off. The stopwatch does fly. Roger Marshall and Roger Burnett has got him within his sights. He's got about 2 miles now left around this Donington Park circuit to catch his friend and teammate, the 2 Rogers, Marshall in front, Burnett behind.
nice actually, because there's no back markers by the looks of it in front of them. So, he says. Because as I say, you know, you can ride really hard and get it all ruined for you in one fell swoop.
And just a quick look behind, still John Swingler in third place, Steve Parrish in fourth spot. And you can see Benetti's closer. He's getting closer and closer. Now, are we in for a grandstand finish?
It's an awful lot to make up. It really is. I mean, it doesn't look that much, but it's definite struggle.
There's a tail ender in the way as they go into the S's. Two of them, in fact. No problems, though. Marshall's going to just zap past them down the short downhill straight. And Benetti, in fact, might be the one who gets into trouble on the corner. Marshall is through round Melbourne hairpin for the last time. And Benetti's right behind him, but he's not going to have enough time. It's going to be a desperately close thing, because Marshall, of course, has no idea that Benetti's closing, and Benetti is going to make a final sprint to the line, and they're going to sprint to the leg, but Marshall is the winner. Roger Marshall the winner. Roger Burnett takes second place, and Burnett got so close, and but for a little bit of a slide at the end, might very well have been there just to catch Roger Marshall.